Honorable Martin Amidu did say earlier when you were asked about the assignment you were given to investigate the then Social Security Bank Limited, July 1988 to September 1988. For our records, did I hear you say that you were the only person of integrity found at the time to do the work?
I didn't say that. I said I was in the Volta region. And the chairman of the PNDC was looking for the hard-nosed man. He normally, because I see things others don't see, because of my capabilities in investigation. You know what I mean? And all those who know me, whether police commissioner, CID, DPP, who have worked with me, know that I have a knack which is God-gifted. So he was looking for the hard-nosed man, and that was me. So he gave me that additional responsibility instead of appointing somebody from Accra. At that time, my friend there was in Revenue Commission, CVC, you know. So I came and did the job. And I did it with a fear of favor. I'm not saying that I was the only honest person in the regime. Otherwise, we wouldn't have traveled that long from 82 and safely, bagged the ship on 7th January 1993. We couldn't have done that. One man, the chairman himself had more integrity than me. That's why he was able to control the ship of state to a successful landing.
Thank you very much. I want us to come to Section 2 of the Act, the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act, 2017, Act 959. There has been a lot of focus on investigation and prosecution, but there is a very important function assigned by Parliament under the object of the office. If you look at 2C, it says, take steps to prevent corruption. Because I believe that we should be interested in improving systems, making it difficult and impossible as much as possible for people to engage in corruption. We should not be scrambling around when the horses have bolted and then we are trying to prosecute people and retrieve stolen and stashed away resources. Can you share with this committee your vision, your ideas for preventing corruption as Section 2C of the Act stipulates?
Chairman, I've already said that one of our duties will be preventative, you know, and good investigation, good prosecution for once. Education also acts as a preventative function. Within security and intelligence, there are certain methods you have to put in place to curb the loopholes. I cannot discuss them until I'm approved and appointed. And that one will maybe not be known to the public. Because if it's known to the public, then there will be no need putting them in place. But we will put in place mechanisms that will make the offenses we are talking about unattractive to anybody who wants to commit them. So I can assure you that indeed the preventive measure is one of the most important measures the law has given. If you can prevent it, you save the whole nation. And the nation will have to be sensitized. When we begin educating the public on what corruption is, we will see that the assumptions, the things we take for granted, are things which really are prohibited by law. And we hope that can be a beginning. And we can do something using methods which other countries have used, but which cannot be disclosed publicly.
You have stated here, time without number, that you are a man of principle. When you are being asked to bend your principles, you will better walk away. You will not allow your principles to be compromised. I have carefully read the rather erudite critique that this 25-pager offers. And I come across four major concerns you raise that you expected that the final output, the final Office of the Special Prosecutor Act 2017 will have addressed. First, you made a point that fundamentally you do not think that this office is even needed in the first place, and that Article 88 is adequate, that we need an Attorney General of integrity. That has not happened. Secondly, you make the point that the Special Prosecutor should not be accountable to a board. But if you read Section 14.1 of the Act, which has been assented to by the President, it says the Special Prosecutor is accountable to the board in the performance of the functions under this Act. You have said that that is a bureaucratic interference with your work and your independence. You also complain about the 15 years. Yes, I want.
He will ask a question after he has recounted this. I'll allow him one question. Now, this is just his prelim. I mean, on this one.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that there are four major issues you raise in your critique. That the Office of the Special Prosecutor is not necessary.
So you may now ask
that the board is not necessary. You talked about the 15 years, the qualification of the Special Prosecutor being a disincentive. You thought that it was too low. But even in the Act, what has been finally approved is 12 years. Then finally, you said you are opposed to the President appointing the staff at the Office of Special Prosecutor, that the Special Prosecutor should be allowed to appoint people that he can work with. But in this Act, Section 21 of this Act, it is the President that's going to appoint this Act. And in your own words, quote, you said, this undermines the Special Prosecutor with politically minded persons, unquote. All of these are in this Act. You have been saying you are a man of principle. Why are you here? Why are you accepting this appointment with all these impediments you have complained about?
Mr. Chairman, it is not true to say that I said that without the Attorney General being allowed to prosecute the crimes, as an Office of Special Prosecutor is not necessary. I have quoted previously, if the honorable questioner was listening, that the moral compass and integrity of the President, and that shows that I stated clearly that this is a president who has gone to elections and won on the basis of a promise, and that it is doable. So to quote out of context is a little bit disconcerting for me, Mr. Chairman, because I have read a number of times that I have said it is doable. And I have said that when the President called me first, he said, Martin, I wish the Attorney Generals could do this, but you know that the public doesn't believe in them. So I promised to do this thing, and we have to do it. Right? I agreed with him. You get what I mean? And therefore, when he said, look at it, the board, I'm telling you that the definition of accountable and interpretation of accountable by law doesn't mean that the board is going to push you around. I've cited two cases in my critique, which if you read, explicates what under authority is. That's why I said it should be under the authority of the Attorney General. From the perspective of my understanding, I said that the board, the Special Prosecutor ought not to be accountable to a board because she's going to work under the authority of the Attorney General. The Attorney General has a legal counsel place, and so to impose another board over the Special Prosecutor, who is just going to do a mere prosecutorial function, will be added bureaucracy. This Parliament has decided that it needs a board, right? I was giving a critique of my opinion. This Parliament has decided it needs a board. It's put the board in a certain way. I have looked at it carefully. I think that it is workable. I have told you that I agree entirely that we must not throw the water away with the the dirty water away with the baby. That's more fundamental to me than anything else. You know, so that is the context in which you are seeing the contradictions. But to me, as long as we can stop the leakages and seepages, which no president has tried to do before, I'll go ahead with him. That is the more fundamental principle, to stop corruption, not to postpone it. And I think that is more supreme. That is why I agreed to do it for him. And as I told you, I didn't think I'll ever accept this job. You see, I'm not bothered about the Court of Appeal judge. I was to go to the Supreme Court, not because of them. I'm doing this job for the love of making sure that people of this country have a better deal and stop the political elite and establishment from siphoning the money of this country abroad. That's why I'm here.
Sammy, yes. Chairman, did I just hear the nominee say no president, no president? Are you suggesting that there's been no attempt or effort by any president to fight corruption in this country?
I don't know the context in which you are quoting me. No president has passed the Special Prosecutors Act. That's what I mean. And if there is one, show me.
Mr. Chairman, I will be moving to my last but one question now. I just thought that the Honorable Martin Amidu will have used his leverage with the President to help us have a more biting and stronger office of the Special Prosecutor Act in line with his own critique. But I will move on. If you can please come with me to Article 296 of the Constitution of Ghana. It reads, where in this Constitution or in any other law discretionary power is vested in any person or authority, A, that discretionary power shall be deemed to imply a duty to be fair and candid. A duty to be fair and candid, emphasis mine. B, the exercise of the discretionary power shall not be arbitrary, capricious, or biased, either by resentment, prejudice, or personal dislike, and shall be in accordance with due process of law, unquote. Mr. Chairman, I have a number of articles that the Honorable nominee has authored. I have here the 8 December 2016 congratulatory message to President-elect Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. In the second paragraph, you write, quote, changing a government under which the mass of ordinary people were unnecessarily and needlessly burdened over the years under the yoke of massive and pervasive corruption, deliberate oligarchic mismanagement of abundant natural resources, party, political, and ethnic cronyism, and abject ineptitude peacefully through the ballot box is a feat worthy of emulation by other citizens of the West African subcontinent, in particular, Africa in general. Then there is this second article dated 1st August 2017, under the caption, Yaudonko's whining is karma for abuse of the Constitution as a public officer, by Martin A.B.K. Amidu. If I'll quote your last paragraph, you write, I have no tears for your egg. Stop whining for the respectful treatment from the police when you refuse to grant your fellow citizens similar respect when you had the opportunity to serve our motherland, Ghana. Yao. But in these cases, we still have judgment here, karma. And I've gone through this 4-page article. You appear to be gloating at the woes of Mr. Yaudonko, the former National Security Coordinator. If I'll quote from the last article I have here, just because of time, Parliament must restore the confidence of citizens in the honor and integrity of the legislature, by Martin A.B.K. Amidu. You wrote, and I quote, unlike previous elections in the annals of our history, the pivotal and critical issues were between electing a corrupt, bankrupt, inept, incompetent, abusive, impudent, and looter incumbent government, and electing one of the contesting candidates dedicated to fighting all these unconstitutional, capricious evils and protecting the national peace. The massive trashing of the incumbent looter government of John Dramani Mahama, may God never give Ghana a corrupt and looter president like him again, unquote. These are your words. Article 296 talks about being fair, being candid, not being driven by resentment. I see a lot of resentment in your articles. Can you, in all true conscience, tell the people of this country and this committee that you are not biased, you are not capricious, and you are not out to do a hatchet job for someone, as some sections of the society believe?
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I've been called gloating, which normally I would not accept from anybody, but he has a privilege against another citizen, and he chooses to use those epithets on him. That's okay. Let me say that I have no leverage whatsoever over President Akufo-Addo. I never met him since we stopped going to court. I've never met him or spoken to him. The only day I saw him was when he came to swear in the Chief Justice, the new Chief Justice. He was going around greeting lawyers, and he shook my hand. Amidu, how are you? Fine. And he passed. The next time I met him was when he invited me to give me this nomination. I have not seen him since then. I have not spoken to him. So I have no leverage. The impression being created is erroneous, and it ought not to be peddled. You see, there is no evidence to support this statement you've made. I have stated that as a constitutional defense advocate, I fight for the people of Ghana using all the arsenals at my disposal. But you see, the questions you have asked me have failed to tell the other side of the story. The articles I have written against the MPP government and the Speaker, including the Honorable Chairman of the committee, when Honorable Mama Ayara got the problems, the things I wrote about him, which was in favor of the NDC, you've gloated over it. When I asked whether the Speaker was the enforcer of the law, you've gloated over it. You know, I've written things against all the political divides in defense of the Constitution. So if I'm going to be, you are saying that because I've written against the pond, a crocodile from the pond in which I come from, I cannot be impartial. What of those in the pond I don't come from? I am saying that the position of special prosecutor is a prosecutorial position, and I stopped practicing law and was doing constitutional defense. Now I'm going back to the practice of law. I will live by the ethics of the legal profession and the code of conduct of the Constitution. And I know better the discretion of the prosecutor because I've practiced it as Deputy Attorney General for upwards of 12 years. And I was Attorney General for 1 year. Who else in this country will know it better than me? I'm the longest serving Deputy Attorney General. So I know what it means to be impartial. I'm telling you, the fraternity of law is not a sleeping fraternity. That's going to close his eyes to Martin Amidu taking victims for his own personal aggrandizement. They are there as watchdogs. And I've lectured on ethics to law students, and I've told them, watch out. Any lawyer who does that is not worth the name. I'm not going to be a special prosecutor who will go into history as being vindictive. I will not.
Sorry, Sammy, you're done.
No, that's my last question now.
No,
that was the agreement, that this will be my last question. I'm grateful, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, my final question comes from the book authored by Dr. Obadiah Asamoah, and the Honorable nominee just talked about the many years he's been Attorney General. For many years, he was the deputy to the venerable and respected Dr. Obadiah Asamoah, in this widely acclaimed and fascinating book titled The Political History of Ghana, 1950 to 2013, The Experience of a Nonconformist. On page 465, Dr. Yao Obed Asamoah had this to say about you. Page 465. 465. Dr. Obed Asamoah said, quote, "In the end, Professor Mills chose as his running mate, my deputy, at the Ministry of Justice, Martin Amidu, in a surprise and unproductive move," unquote. Surprise and unproductive move. In the next paragraph, he writes, "In my mind, I did not think that Martin Amidu would be beneficial to the ticket," unquote. I'm sure that you are aware of this publication. This was your boss for many years. You've talked about us checking with the people you have worked with to vouch for your credibility and your hard work and impartiality, which I am not saying is in doubt at this point. But how do you respond to your boss passing such a damning verdict on your selection as running mate of then candidate Mills?
Mr. Chairman, in the first place, Dr. Asamoah is not my boss.
Honorable Oni, hold on. If you wish to answer, fine. But I would have...
Let me answer him.
Very well.
Dr. Asamoah is not my boss. He did not pay my fees through law school. He was called to the bar. I was called to the bar. He didn't appoint me Deputy Attorney General. I was appointed Deputy Attorney General before he came there. And I served under Akins, Nanatano. Mr. Forson came for 6 months before he was asked to act, right? And we are colleagues, except that he was the Attorney General and I was the Deputy. And therefore, I knew my place and worked with him. That doesn't make him my boss. You see, so you are reading a self-serving book in which he wanted to be the vice presidential candidate. He was bypassed. The candidate saw in his deputy more competence, right, and excellence than him. Then he writes a book, and he writes this thing, and you are coming to read it to the whole public. I've never read that book. I've heard about it. But you see, you have raised it in public. You see, you are reading a self-serving statement when your own presidential candidate and later president saw me as a more preferred candidate than him. And in any case, the law reports demonstrate that while he was doing that, I was going to court. He didn't train me. So and if you say he is erudic, well, that's your comment. But you see, I regret that you've brought his book and you want to knock my head against it. In his recent interview to MFA Apau, he described me as a person of honesty. You see, but you see, you people, you will collapse your old people by reading these things. Then I'll react this way. Dr. Asamoah calls me. Dr. Asamoah calls me, even when I was Attorney General. And even when he was accused, he called me to find out, Amidu, did it happen? And then I told him it didn't happen. So I'm on good terms with him. So if because of vetting we are doing this, I don't think it's good. You know, I would have let the question pass, but the public will understand it otherwise. Indeed, Professor, he and my senior brother, Elijah Mamedus, were looking for it. And then when Prof gave it to me, I told him, I will not accept a position which my senior brother was looking for unless he gives his blessing. I asked him first, have you told Dr. Asamoah? He said, yes. He's supposed to have been with me here to announce it to you. But he said, I can go ahead. I asked him, did you tell Elijah Mamedus? He said, no. I said, that's my senior brother. I can't take a position he was looking for. So if you want, after he persuaded me, I said, well, then you have to seek Alaji's concurrence. I was driving myself. I drove to Alaji's house, pointed to his house. Prof went and saw him. Asked Alaji, he's alive, he's not dead, before I accepted the position. So my customary behavior with elders is special. And I wouldn't have liked to talk about Dr. Samoa. You've put temptation in my path. Unfortunately, unlike Justice Philip Acha, I took it. But I'm sorry to make those comments about him.
Yeah, Senior, if you pay regard to the long title of Act 959, Mr. Chairman, if I have your permission, I'd like to quote it. An act to establish the office of the Special Prosecutor as a specialized agency to investigate specific cases of alleged or suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses involving public officers and politically exposed persons in the performance of their functions, as well as persons in the private sector involved in the commission of the alleged or suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses. Prosecute these offenses on the authority of the Attorney General and provide for related matters. Nominee, my chief concern is the suspected corruption. And because of you've been given powers to investigate, my concern is this, that because you are also supposed to look at suspected corruption or alleged corruption, the office could be so inundated with these allegations. And because sometimes you could be politically motivated to the point that you trying to sift the wheat from the chaff will take all your energies and you will have no time to do the actual job. Do you envisage a situation in which there's an overload of cases of suspected corruption, and then before you finish all of them, I mean, you don't even have the space to do the real job?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The person who complains has to adduce credible evidence. So if you come to make a complaint, the act shows how a complaint will be made. I am sure there will be an office which will establish when the institution comes into being. So there will be a location where you go and make a formal complaint, or if you send a letter, there's an officer who will take it and who may invite you and initiate the investigations. But honorable member will agree with me that even in the criminal code, the police investigate reasonable suspicion of commission of offenses. And that's the context in which I will look at this. If you just write a letter which is not reasonable, it will be a waste of resources to try to investigate it. So anybody writing a letter should write a letter which is credible and therefore can lead to investigations. I mean, we are not going to be a rumor mill. If I am approved, collecting rumors. And I think that we can sift them. And since we will have investigators and prosecutors who may do the bulk of the work, and we will be supervising, I am believing that we will do our best to handle it. Of course, at the beginning, people may inundate us, but as time goes on, when they see the parameters within which we work, they may stop doing that. The Attorney General is normally a lawyer of good standing. And speaking as a lawyer, I don't see the situation where any Attorney General will enter a nolle prosequi in a case being prosecuted by an independent special prosecutor without the knowledge of that fellow. That's why there must be a working relationship that avoids it, and I don't think that will happen. I don't foresee it. In any case, that is why the President Trump has been said he wants to dismiss Mueller. It's been on the news, but he is finding it almost impossible because of the public reaction that will happen. And I believe anybody who wants to bypass the special prosecutor to do something will think about public opinion. And I don't even think that the Attorney General will do that without consultation. I can't foresee it because it's not done among lawyers. Lawyers who are lawyers.
Chairman, are there lawyers who are carpenters?
You could feel the fire of the article that some dubious payments were made to Waterville, which made Ghana poorer by 25 million euros. And then Isophoton, which emptied our coffers in the huge sum of United States dollars, 325 million. And I got the impression that in the article, the Woyomo case seems to have dwarfed the publicity of these two serious cases. Do you see Waterville and Isophoton payments having criminal dimensions? And if your answer is yes, and when you are approved, will these cases be uppermost in your list of cases you want to prosecute?
It's not a question, Mr. Chairman, I can answer. I dealt with these cases a very long time ago. And unless I refresh my memory fully on them, I don't want to commit myself to anything. In any case, those cases have been pending for a very long time. And I believe if it's been looked at, they'll be looked at. I don't think that they may necessarily have to be the special prosecutor's baby, even though if there are issues of corruption and a proper complaint is made, they'll be looked at. But that it doesn't follow that if they don't meet the prosecutorial standard, we will do anything about it.
Thank you, honourable members. We will suspend sitting for 1 hour.
Mr. Chairman, how would a nominee respond to accusation of incompetence upon losing cases of corruption or criminal trials?
I don't understand the question myself, so can you clarify it for the...
What I mean is that if in prosecuting cases of corruption, the media loses first case, second case, third case, and public opinion, public pronouncement is alleging incompetence, how would a nominee respond to?
The office of the special prosecutor is supposed to be a professional office. And it's only the vindictive prosecutor who would expect that every case he goes to court, he must win. You will have to go to court when there is a higher threshold, but that's your office perception. You are going to put the case before an independent judge. There are going to be adversaries on the other side. If you don't put a proper case and you lose it, you've lost it. That's all of it. So if you lose 3 cases, I mean, you've done your best. The evidence is weak. You can't do otherwise about it. You know, in any case, I will think that we will try as much as possible not to just send cases to court because we want to send them. But even if we believe in them and we lose them, justice has been done. And we must be praised for conceding to defeat rather than condemned because we couldn't persuade the judge. Lawyers lose several cases. It doesn't make a difference. You do your best. Once you've done your best, the rest, you shouldn't worry about it.
The nominee, in his responses to one of the questions, indicated that he may use reparations when he believes it's in public interest. A restitution, yes, when he believes it's in public interest. Mr. Chairman, I would want to find out how the nominee would minimize the implicit moral hazard. That is the risk that knowing the special prosecutor could use reparations, people would get the mindset that, okay, then I would steal. If I'm caught, I'm asked to just refund. And that in itself starts defeating the objective of his office.
Chairman, as I have said, each case will be treated on its merits. There are times when, as a prosecutor, you see it's better to settle than to go to court. Because your evidence may not be as strong as you think. But because your evidence is not disclosable to the defendant, he might conclude that, look, it's better I settle, right? As a prosecutor, you may think that the nation is better off settling than going to court and losing. And that is why you don't do it alone, because you have to work as a collective. Your group must agree that, look, this case is better we settle than to go to court. There's no point going to court and losing the money. If taking the money will give you a better state, you will do it. So it's all a balancing act. I can't give you all the basic yardsticks that are required, but in the law books, there are standards for doing it, which will make it honorable and which others can uphold. Whatever you are doing, it is what other lawyers would believe is reasonable and credible you should do.
Follow up, would he be open to a thinking that if, for example, we call triple penalty, 1 cedi stolen, you refund 3 cedis in such reparative measures? Would he be open to thinking like that? Penalty, like you stole something, you are refunding it, but are you refunding the exact amount or interest calculated for loss of public option to have used the money for investment?
I cannot say it alone here, but it will depend on the circumstances of the case and the gravity of the offense. You know, these are factors which will come to inform. If a penalty may be imposed, the circumstances will show. It will show, depend on what we have been able to find out. You will realize that in Nigeria, they found some monies. It's taken so many years, even they are not getting the monies. So they had to do a renegotiation to get some of the monies back. These are all things we, as in that office, we will have to consider and act objectively in the national interest. That's all I can say, because I can't conjecture what will happen in the future. But I can assure you that we will do our best using best practices in prosecutorial practice or standards.
Honorable nominee, Parliament of the Republic of Ghana passed the Major Mahama Trust Fund Bill, and the bill was submitted to His Excellency, the President, for his assent. While the bill was waiting for the President to append his signature, you wrote under the title, Mr. President, think long before signing the Major Mahama Trust Act. And this was written on 13th of November, 2017. Mr. Chairman, with your indulgence, I would like to read some few paragraphs. Mr. President, the bill that Parliament passed for your signature suffers from several constitutional, legal, and policy defects that should have been conditions precedent to its enactment. Portions of the bill passed by Parliament for your signature are inconsistent with and contravene the 1992 Constitution in several material particulars. It also seriously undermines and put to naught several provisions of the Armed Forces Act 1962, Act 105, as revised, and regulations made thereunder to compose and regulate the conduct of the Ghana Armed Forces. And in conclusion, you said, Mr. President, there is a tendency on the part of many politicians and political appointees to overplease every sitting president in whatever he says. Your wishes, when you state them, ought to be implemented in accordance with the due process of law, where feasible. I sincerely do not think the bill presented to you for signature meets constitutionality and due process of law. That is why I urge you to think long before you sign it. This was the letter, the article you wrote And then on the, let me lay a solid foundation.
Honorable.
And on the 2nd January, I'm not asking the question.
Yeah,
and on 2nd January 2018,
why we wanted to limit
the president, in spite of this advice, assented to the bill. Can you share with the committee the constitutional defects of that bill and whether or not the president erred in assenting to a bill that has several constitutional defects? And also to ask, did the president think long in assenting?
Mr. Chairman, I have stated that I was a constitutional defense advocate, and I was doing my work as a constitutional defense advocate. Right, so I wrote it as strongly as I could. Let me tell you one thing. The late Major Mama's grandfather was my very close friend because I worked with him at the Arts Council in Tamale. So I didn't write that thing lightly. I thought that if we were going to make a bill, it should be general, not targeting one person. And I thought that the national interest will not be served. But I am not the judge of the national interest. I'm a constitutional advocate. The fact that the president decided to assent it, for me, I've done my duty as a constitutional advocate. And that is it. If I could assent or refuse assent, I should have been the president. I was just persuading him. And he didn't accept my persuasion. And yet he still thinks that I'm credible enough to be his special prosecutor because I'm forthright and plain in what I think. So I'm transparent. You will see me even when I'm afar. So I don't have a problem if the president decides to. As I told you, Trump memorized that the act was unconstitutional, and yet he signed it.
Honorable member, he has answered. Ask us the next question.
Then the second question. On the 8th of February 2018, the president was in Parliament to fulfill a constitutional requirement by delivering the State of the Nation address. In page 17, the president had this to say: from the allegations against the minister-designate for energy at his parliamentary confirmation hearings and several other allegations, the president said that investigations have been conducted, and he concluded by saying that they have all been investigated and no evidence has been adduced to suggest any act of corruption, conflict of interest, or wrongdoing. But, Honorable Nominee, you wrote again under the title Punishing Honorable Mahama Yarga for Contempt of Parliament for unconstitutional and void. And then I'm reading some few paragraphs. Speaking for myself and in exercise of my fundamental constitutional rights, pursuant to Article 3 of the Constitution, I say that Parliament still owes the sovereign people of Ghana a fair, transparent, and accountable investigations into the allegations of bribery and corruption made against the Appointment Committee of Parliament. And it goes on. It affronts the dignity and honor of the people under Article 1 and 3 of the 1992 Constitution to be treated to an unconstitutional process that ends up sacrificing one of its members as a scapegoat for very serious allegations that affect the confidence of we, the people, in the working and integrity of such an important constitutional body established to guarantee to us democracy, the rule of law, separation of powers, transparency, probity, accountability in governance. I'm coming, Mr. Chairman. I'm coming. It goes on. Parliament knowingly chose to constitute itself into a prosecutor, jury, and judge in its own cause and act unconstitutionally to punish a scapegoat for contempt in the hope of appeasing the public perceived to be a rabble instead of sovereign and intelligent. An impartial and independent committee of inquiry can yet be constituted to impartially investigate the allegations of bribery and corruption in the appointment committee of Parliament. The President of the Republic of Ghana was elected upon an anti-corruption agenda, and it is expected that he will put the matter to rest by setting up a commission of inquiry under Article 278 of the 1992 Constitution to assuage the public suspicion of any perception of unconstitutional cover-up or window dressing in this matter. This is a challenge to the president because his party, the New Patriotic Party, on whose behalf he promised to fight against corruption, is the majority in the parliament against which the allegation of bribery has been made in the appointment committee, and which also supervise the unconstitutional investigations. May the anti-corruption wishes of Ghanaians for changing the government on the polls of 7th December 2017 not be in vain. This is from the nominee, Mr. Martin Amidu. Now, it appears clearly that you have a position different from that of the president in respect of this particular matter. If given the nod, would you assure this committee that because, in your view, finality has not been brought to this matter, you will cause investigation to be done into the matter to ensure that we close it once and for all?
Mr. Chairman, the operative word he read, speaking for myself. That's the operative word. I was speaking for myself as an anti-corruption campaigner. And I was persuading the president to take my side. He didn't take my side. But as I have said, there are as many opinions as there are men. Why the Greek democracy was good and the Roman democracy was good is that when you meet in the arena, everybody speaks his mind. And yet there is tolerance. And this is an exhibition of democracy that I have had my say defending the Constitution. The president thinks otherwise. None of us is the Supreme Court. So he's giving his opinion, I've given my opinion. So I don't see why I should go and be following an opinion I had written. If I had wanted to go to the Supreme Court, I would have done so under Article 2. But nobody, my article coincided with Major Mama's death. So it was subsumed by the euphoria of that time. I didn't go to the Supreme Court. And I left it at that. And the president disagreeing with me beautifies democracy. On the contrary, some president would have been so angry that an ordinary citizen has written an article which is not rhyming with his, right? And would have sent midnight policemen after him. Unfortunately, this is a president who is part of all these. Thinks that this guy is so forthright and outspoken that he's the right man to do this job.
No, I'm not done.
The last one. Reduce the length of quotation.
No, I'm not quoting again. From what I read, you also described the process used by Parliament in resolving that matter as unconstitutional. Can you share with this committee the unconstitutionality of the process used?
Mr. Chairman, the document speaks for itself. It's a bulky document. I can't go, unless I'm going to read the whole document to you. I made constitutional arguments. You've read them. Those are the things I've said. Because you see, contempt is to be tried by a particular privileges committee. If you read the rules, and I've made that argument, that's my view. And somebody can disagree with it. When we go to the Supreme Court, I may win or I'll lose. But I'm entitled to make my views in a democracy. I mean, nobody can gag his friend in a democracy from making his views. And I've made my views. Unless you think that I am not entitled to exercise my rights to air my views and that mine must be suppressed contrary to Article 3.2, then I think you should allow me to be entitled to my views. And the president has not been angry with them.
No, all right. You'll get your chance, please.
Thank you very much. About my colleague, Honorable Okujeto Ablakwa, I haven't called you in connection with payment of $1.3 million judgment debt, which Isofoton was claiming. Could you clarify to this committee the circumstances under which you had this interaction with the honorable member?
We spoke on radio, Oman FM. And if we can get the recording, it will be better than for me raking my memory and trying to speak about something that happened a long time ago. It will not be fair to him or to me while I'm on oath to try to recollect something that happened long time. But I think Oman FM has the recording. That will be fair to him and to me.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I think that I'll stand down in government. A number of former appointees of the previous regime were successfully prosecuted and convicted for causing financial loss to the state. Some of the evidence relied upon during the prosecution were reports from audits conducted during the time you were in office. During all that time, you were Deputy Attorney General with a key responsibility to prosecute these persons. But not a single member of that administration was prosecuted under your watch. Can you explain what happened?
He himself has underscored the fact that I was Deputy Attorney General. There was an Attorney General. And the Article 88 puts the responsibility on the Attorney General. Indeed, you can even call me Minister for Justice, because the Constitution has no provision for a Deputy Attorney General, right? So, as a Deputy Minister, I work up to the Attorney General, whose responsibility is to execute those functions he is entrusted with. So it is wrong to say that I didn't prosecute. The office didn't. I mean, I don't even know whether the audit report came while we were in office or it came after we had left office. And if it's 2000, I'm sure we might have been too busy in election campaign that neither the Attorney General or myself must have looked at it, because the matter arose immediately after the elections when a new government came in. And then they used that audit report. But as I have told you already, we had advised our operatives against some of the things that came in the audit report, right? So when they were being prosecuted, I could not be their lawyer, neither could the Attorney General be their lawyer. And indeed, part of the money taken was for the legal sector reform. Part of the money taken was for Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology, Advocate's Ministry, without his knowledge or consent, right? So there was nothing I could do about it when I was in office. In any case, as Deputy Attorney General, I handle a docket when the Attorney General says, handle it conclusively. But that's not the case that was given to me to handle. And as I said, I am not sure even he himself saw the audit report. But what we had to do, in all honesty, we did by advising our colleagues not to do them.
Questions for you. My first one has to flow from Section 3.1 of Act 959. As part of your functions, you receive and act on referrals of investigations of allegation of corruption and corruption related to offenses as referred to you by Parliament, Shuach, Yoko, and other bodies. But in an article that I also want to refer to, 11th of January 2017 on Ghana Web, and I want to quote, "The 7th Parliament must restore the confidence of citizens in the honor and integrity of the legislature," end of quote. You said, "I was pleasantly amused by the enthusiasm both sides of the House on the committee showed in signing for their extortion money." Quote, "I was pleasantly amused by the enthusiasm both sides of the House on the committee showed in signing for their extortion money," end of quote. Yes. Oh. It's on the appointed committee issue. I have paraphrased it. Yes. But do you want me to have the full article here? Do you have the full
It's
article?
Neil and Tivan continue.
Yes.
Don't be distracted.
Do you remember writing this article?
Not in the way you have.
Did you make any comment?
I'm saying not in the way you have put it.
Okay, but did you make any comment about the issue of perceived bribery among the appointed committee?
I
of Parliament?
admonish the new parliament to make sure that it lived above suspicion. I did, but I don't remember word for word what you are quoting. That's why I asked for the article, But I don't deny that I did. And some of the members of parliament were not pleased about it. And I said that nothing I said affected the 7th parliament. I was talking about a parliament which had ceased to exist.
Yeah, but my question has not come yet on this issue. Yes, I have the full article here. I'm going to say, if you're going to work with this organization, Parliament, you have to come and we have to make referrals to you. The same thing applies with your serious critique on Tiger Eye. That's Anansari Miyao Anansi's group. You even impugn on the integrity of the organization. You call them lies, fraudulent, and all this. If you have to work with these organizations and you have such a level of distrust with them, how are you going to cooperate in ensuring that you enhance the office you're going to hold?
Look, Mr. Chairman, Parliament is elected by we the people to represent us. And we are at liberty to critique it. If we as citizens cannot critique it because one day we will appear for them, it means that we are being gagged. I expressed my opinion about Parliament. I didn't hide it. I expressed it robustly and openly. So that doesn't mean I don't respect Parliament. I do respect Parliament. But as a citizen, I have a right to make comments, which I did very candidly. And I was advising the incoming Parliament not to do what the abrogated Parliament did. And I don't see anything really wrong with it. It's a constitutional defense mechanism to tell Parliament, don't do what they did. Chart a new path. Be a different... It may be well that there are old members of the old Parliament in this one, but that doesn't make this yesterday's Parliament. And I was admonishing this Parliament. That doesn't mean I cannot work with Parliament, but that also doesn't mean that when a member of Parliament is involved in a corruption offense, I will let him go. I have to be fair. So I cannot be docile. My appointment gags me because I can't criticize you again. It gags me. That's why since I was nominated, nobody has heard a word from me. Right? But if in the discharge of the duties, a member falls foul of the law, my duty, if properly investigated, and there is a case, to deal with the matter. Other countries, Netanyahu is under investigation. Trump is under investigation. Temer in Brazil is under investigation. I haven't said that, don't put words into my mouth. All I'm trying to say is that the law is no respecter of persons. Consequently, the very fact that I have criticized Parliament as a body doesn't mean that because you are calling my attention to that criticism, I'll be intimidated not to deal with a member of Parliament if he's involved in a corruption offense. I'm trying to disabuse of it. I will deal with it squarely.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, my senior cadre has not dealt with the second aspect. I mentioned Parliament, I mentioned Tiger Eye. And I said a lot of things that you used against.
Mr. Chairman, when you ask me so many questions, it's difficult to keep all of them. Tiger Eye, that was a matter, a constitutional matter I raised against Tiger Eye, a registered company under the Companies Code. And the reason why I didn't pursue the matter further was because some people had gone to the Supreme Court with the matter. It doesn't mean I don't believe in what I wrote. You see, but as I said, Tiger Eye is not on trial. I won't make a comment about Tiger Eye when they would have the chance to answer. But I'm saying the reason why I didn't move further on that company, and indeed, it is not known as Tiger Eye in the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Interior. They changed their name. I've forgotten the name. I didn't know this matter will be raised. But they changed their name. You know, but it is not fair for me to come and make statements about them here when they have no right of reply. And I believe that if Tiger Eye thinks that I said anything that defamed them, they know the right forum. And I will meet them there. I will adduce my evidence. And at the end of the day, I spoke about people holding service passports. It was admitted, you know. And when we get to the court on defamation, then we will know public trial. Even a special prosecutor can be sued in a civil action. I will adduce evidence, but I don't think it's fair when they are not here for us to use the privilege we have to raise issues about them so that I may make a comment which may not be fair on their part because they cannot answer. I don't think that would be fair, Mr. Chairman. And I will crave your indulgence that I be not compelled to make statements about them when they cannot respond.
Chairman, to my second question.